The Asics Metaspeed Edge Paris has been one of the most talked about super shoes for running in 2024, but also actually one of the hardest to get hold of as well. Well, I managed to get a pair of these from Asics 2 weeks ago, and I've since done 3 runs in these. And as an avid Nike super shoe fan, somebody that is used to running in these, I want to share with you my first experiences with these, my thoughts and impressions. But spoiler alert, these things are fantastic. Okay, let's cover some of the basics first. So I got the Asics Metaspeed Edge Paris in a UK size 10, so a US size 11, and I paid 220 English pounds, which equates to, I believe, 250 US dollars. As I said, I got these in a size 10, which I believe comes in at about 190 grams. I could not believe how light these trainers are, and I still can't. When I had the box delivered for this through the post, I almost thought that there was nothing in the box and that they'd forgotten to put the trainers in. They're really that light. Just to give you some context, the Alphafly 3s, which I also think are incredibly light, come in at just under 220 grams. So these are a full 30-ish grams lighter than the Alphafly 3. So these things are incredibly light. Obviously, this is a fully carbon plated trainer. So there is a carbon plate that runs right the way through the shoe. Now, you may know that the Metaspeed Paris comes in 2 editions. So I have the Edge and you also have the Sky option as well. Now, the only difference between the two is that the carbon plate is slightly different. So the Edge that I have here, the plate actually runs adjacent to where you can see where this red is here. That's where to tell where the plate is. So in the Edge, it's actually a lot more curved than it is in the Sky Paris. So if you were to see the Paris, and if I can, what I'll do is just show you an example of the differences between the two from the Asics website. But the curved nature of the Edge is supposed to essentially rock you faster and further, and this is, I guess, marketed towards people that have a high cadence, with the intention really of propelling you forward and increasing your stride longer, so that combination of your high cadence and slightly longer stride will give you faster times. In reality, and what I've heard from other people, both through reviews and talking to people that have a version of either the Edge or the Sky, is that actually it really is just around what you find suits you better. It doesn't mean that the Edge is going to be better for you if you are a high cadence runner. It just means that this is how Asics have marketed it. But essentially the difference being that if you want a stiffer and firmer ride from these trainers, then it may be that the Sky is a better option for you to go for. And if you like, you know, the bounce and to feel like very early on in your stride you're kind of being pushed forward, then maybe the Edge is the one to go for. Fully carbon plated, as we said. The one difference actually here is that Asics have designed this trainer with no cutouts to actually see the carbon plate, which for me at least means that the fact that these are so light and there's no cutouts in this trainer is quite incredible. The fact that these are so light without any, you know, kind of cutouts that you would see in something like the Alphafly 3, or, you know, even the bottom of the Vaporflies. The fact that these are, you know, all intents and purposes one unit of foam with a carbon plate inside and still so light is just incredible. Moving on, the upper mesh is what they call the Motion Wrap 2.0. Super comfortable, super lightweight and super breathable. You can probably see through the trainers here on this video, but it's very comfortable. I would say that it's you know, you after only a few minutes of having this trainer on, you'll pretty much forget that you've got it on. In terms of room and what this trainer is designed to suit in terms of running style, very much a neutral running, designed for the neutral runner. I would say that actually probably leans a little bit towards people with you know, kind of a thinner thinner foot. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but there's not an awful lot of space through the heel and into the midfoot, although the trainer itself does spread out a lot. So the toe box, you feel like you've got a lot of space in there. So for me, I've got a narrow was the word I was looking for. I've got a pretty narrow foot, which is why Nike shoes have always been my go-to, because typically Nike shoes are very good for narrow foot runners, but these are very similar. In fact, I would say they feel very similar to the Vaporflies, and actually probably is a better comparison in terms of the comparison to the Nike Super shoes. So from a weight perspective, they're very similar. In terms of the heel drop, so we've got stack height at the back of 39.5, at the front 34.5, so only a 5 mil drop on these trainers, which is actually a little bit less than what you typically see on a lot of other super shoes out there. I've seen for the most part 8 mil drops. I didn't really notice any difference on the runs that I've done so far in this shoe. One thing that I haven't heard too many people that reviewed these shoes talk about, but something that is super important for me, is the style of laces. And what Nike have done always very well on their super shoes is to use these very flat laces, but also they're kind of got little grooves in them, almost like little teeth, if that's the right way of putting it. But it's designed very, very specifically to stop your laces coming undone during a run, which is obviously when you're trying to do a fast, whether it be a 5k, 10k, half marathon, the last thing you want is your laces to come undone. And I found that the Vaporflies have a very similar lacing system on them to these, as does the Alphafly, and I think that Asics have chosen the right type of laces for these trainers to ensure that the trainers stay very firmly laced up during your runs, and there's almost no chance, as long as you're double knotting these, for them to come undone. I mentioned that they're for a neutral runner. The tongue on this is super thin, not gusseted, and probably will move around a little bit in your run. The tongue is very very minimal, let's just say. I'm not a big fan of that. I really like more of a substantial tongue. But that said, I've done 3 runs in this shoe so far, and I've had no problems whatsoever with the tongue. It's not really moved around too much during the run, so no issues there. Now, how these have felt on. Before I get into that, let me just show you a little bit of B-roll of me running in these yesterday, and then I'll come back and tell you a little bit more about the shoe.
It was always me versus me, it was never me versus you. Misunderstood, get up, had to beat those eyes. Got up and I beat those eyes, it's understood. It was always me versus me, it was never me versus you. And now I'm good, wake up and I do my part, wake up and I do my job, just how I should. It was always me versus me, it was never me versus you. Misunderstood, get up, had to beat those eyes. Got up and I beat those eyes, it's understood. It was always me versus me, it was never me versus you. And now I'm good, wake up and I do my part, wake up and I do my job.
So what I can tell you after 3 runs in these trainers, and my first impressions are, these things are incredible. I've been absolutely blown away by my experience in these so far. The comfort, the durability, the grip on these things. I mean, you can see now running these 3 times, and yeah, there's a couple of very small marks there, but actually there's no real issues whatsoever. The grip is very, very good. I've not run in these in the wet, but I hear that they're pretty good in the wet, but certainly in the dry, the grip that you've got here, which runs right the way through the shoe to the back, and then you've also got a pad here. Everything else here is just obviously very, very soft foam, is very, very good. You feel very much attached to the road as you're running. Probably goes without saying, as with any super shoe, these are designed to be run on the road, so I would definitely not take these on any kind of off-road surfaces, gravel, things like that, because it really would affect the underneath and the grip of these shoes, and I think that you'd probably end up ruining them. So you just want to run in these in either on the road races, or potentially on the track as well. The foam that's used in here, this FF Turbo Plus foam that they've upgraded from the original version of these shoes, is, you know, very responsive. You feel quite a lot of bounce. It feels comfortable, but it's definitely firmer than the Nike shoes. So with the Alphaflys, for example, you know, you feel almost like you're treading on a duvet when you've got these things on. These feel much more solid. They're not as soft, that's for sure, but you do, once you get running in these and you're on the road in these, then you do feel a lot of bounce, you feel a lot of propulsion. Now, what I was most impressed with these trainers is how quickly these things get you turned over in your stride. As soon as you're hitting the road, you're almost into your next stride immediately. And as a high cadence runner and somebody that, you know, really relies on rhythm, these things really help get you in a rhythm. And they kept, you know, as I say, you know, as soon as you're into your stride, bang, you're out of the back. And for that reason, these things are fast. I would say even faster than the Vaporflies and the Alphaflys. And somebody that's a bit of a Nike fanboy, somebody that wears Nike and has worn Nike for exclusively for pretty much the last 3 years, it pains me in some ways to say it, but these, I think, are better shoes and will be more durable than either the Vaporfly or the Alphafly over time. And I think that these are the quicker trainer of the bunch. Now, that said, there's not a lot in it. I've done some preliminary kind of comparisons on my Strava outputs in terms of cadence and heart rate and things. There definitely is not a lot in it, but very, very small margins. But what I'm all about is how these things make you feel when you're running. And they feel fast, they are fast, they're very comfortable. There's a lot of support through the hill. There's not an awful lot to the hill, I would say, but it feels comfortable. You don't get any slippage. I didn't feel the need to do a runner's knot in these trainers. So it's pretty obvious, right, that I think these trainers are fantastic. Having the Nike Alphafly blueprints and these trainers in the same couple of weeks is probably overkill, to be honest with you. I mean, if I was able to get a hold of these earlier and try these earlier, I probably would not have bought these, because the quality, I think, is fantastic. The price being 220 English pounds versus 285 English pounds means that these are better value in terms of your cost and outlay, but I think you can get more miles, and I think you're going to be happier with the results in these. Not taking away too much. I mean, I think from a looks perspective, at least to me, I think that the Nike Alphaflys are still probably a little bit more of an attractive trainer, but being an attractive trainer doesn't make you run faster. So the margins are small. You know, if you're going to go with Vaporflies, or whether you're going to go with Alphaflys, or whether you're going to go with the Metaspeed Edge Paris, you're going to be happy in any of those trainers. But what I will say is I think that these will very soon be my go-tos, if not already, for anything up to half marathon. Now, I haven't done any real long distances in these, so this bit of advice actually is just coming from what I've heard from respected trainer reviewers that I've seen on the internet. People like the Run Testers have said that these are probably designed more towards people that are going to run, you know, half marathon down to 5Ks, whereas if you're up at the half marathon, then perhaps this guy might be the better choice, just because of the comfort and just because of the extra bounce and I guess more comfortable ride that you're going to get over that very long distance. But these trainers are fantastic. If you can get hold of a pair, then I would recommend these very, very highly. You're going to get great results in them. You're going to be very, very pleased, and they look pretty cool as well. So if you do already have these, drop me a note in the comments as to whether you agree. And if you are somebody that has tried either the Vaporflies versus these or the Alphaflys versus these, then let me know if you agree with my opinions. Obviously, any kind of review of anything, whether it be trainers or anything, is very subjective. And I'm sure that there's as many people out there that think that these are not as good as the Alphaflys. But for me, and take it from somebody that is very much a Nike fan, and almost all of my trainers are Nike, and a lot of my clothing is Nike, these things are right up there with anything that Nike have ever brought out, and for me, probably slightly better. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say, if you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up. Really helps get the videos out there. If you haven't seen anything from my channel before, I do some running videos, some reviews, and the channel is all about finding the people out there in the community that are interested in sharing experience in mental health and the links it has with running and the positive effects of a very physical lifestyle on mental health. So if you haven't, go check out some of my other videos. If you haven't got time, no problem. Thanks for watching this video, and potentially and hopefully see you in the next video.